Hi guys, I'm Bruce with G, and as we know, Genshin Impact released Xiao. At this point, everybody knows that Xiao is really great. And maybe you're saying, you know what, I'm free to play. I haven't pulled a 6-6 Xiao. I have no money. I'm on welfare basically. So what exactly can I do? How can I have my fun? Well, if you have already a Xiao, you're pretty much there. You don't really need that many constellations for this character to really shine. So what exactly are your options when you are free to play? Well, I'm going to tell you the best possible build that you can get for this character while being free to play. Alright, so the very first thing that you gotta know about this character is that its passive substat, the one that he gets every time that he levels up, is critical rate. And thus, you have a passive 24% critical rate, which is amazing. It's one of the things that you really have to consider in order to build this character properly. So starting out with weapons, definitely the best weapon that you can have right now for Xiao would be the Primordial Jade Wing Spear, right? But we are talking about free to play. I just wanted to point out that this is definitely the best possible weapon for Xiao. But being free to play, we probably don't have enough luck, or we don't really want to summon on this or waste our Primogems on any of the weapon banners because we just want more characters, right? Now, your best next option as free to play would be rather low spending. It would be Deathmatch, in my opinion, because I believe that the passive is really great. Also, you're getting a lot of critical rate out of this. It's just one amazing weapon, right? If you were to get Deathmatch, you wouldn't really need to worry anymore about getting any critical rate in your artifacts. So that would be like, it's amazing. And then, as we know, Rosaria is coming out and she has like passives that increase the critical rate even further. So that would be like a nice pairing, right? I think Rosaria is going to be pretty great for Xiao as a support, I guess. So yeah, if you are low spending, I recommend you get Deathmatch. For him, it's going to be the best weapon that you can get for this character if you are low spending. Now, it's strictly free to play. Blackcliff, 100%. This is the best weapon that you can get if you are free to play. And you literally don't want to spend on the battle pass. Because why? You're getting a lot of critical damage that you need. And the passive is not all that bad, particularly when we know that Xiao is very heavy when it comes down to AoE damage. So you're getting a lot out of this, as long as you're doing something like Spiral Abyss, I guess, or doing your dailies or something. When it comes down to bosses, it's not going to be that great, but you're still getting a lot of critical damage. You're just missing on the passive, I guess. Now, if you are desperate and you want to, and you don't have Blackcliff already, and you want to build him already, well, you have to use Royal Spear. Royal Spear is your next best weapon. I would disagree on the fact that this is not as great as Blackcliff, for example, because it has attack percentage. And attack percentage, although it's not bad at all, it's just not the best in my opinion. I think the best thing that you can get for Xiao is definitely crit damage or critical rate. And of course, you can say, you know what, you have a lot of critical rate out of the passive, out of this particular weapon, but I believe it is kind of worthless of a passive. I think it's really not that great. It's not like it's not like you can forget about critical rate. Like, for example, if you have Deathmatch, you can definitely forget about critical rate in all of your artifacts. You no longer need it. If you happen to get one amazing artifact that has like attack percentage and critical damage, but has no critical rate, it doesn't matter anymore because you have like 61% critical rate in total. It's just going to be absolutely great, right? But when it comes down to this particular weapon, well, although you get a lot of critical rate at the end of the day, after doing several attacks, it's just not really that reliable, right? So I don't really think Royal Speed is all that great, but if you're really desperate and you want to get it ready to build your Xiao, go for it. It's not the end of the world. Now, Crescent Pike, the problem with Crescent Pike is that use it if you don't really have anything else. And also Prototype Stark Leader, this is a decent weapon that you can also use. It's not the best either, but it's fine. Like, it's going to help you a little bit with the energy recharge, so it's not a big a deal. But definitely, if you are free to play, aim to get Blackcliff, 100%. Like, no spending at all, Blackcliff. Now, there is something very important that you have to take into consideration when you're making your build. Whatever is your weapon is going to dictate what exactly is going to be the stats of your circlet, of your hat. If, for example, we go with Blackcliff, which has critical damage, we're going to need to have a hat that has critical rate as its main stat. But if we get Deathmatch, for example, we're going to need a hat that has in its main stat critical damage, right? So pay attention to your weapon, because the one that you decide to invest on is going to be the one that decides which kind of stats go into your hat. And I believe that is a very, very important thing to consider, especially being free to play, because you don't really have the resources to just be wasting away, right? So be very careful with that. Now, in the testing that we have for Xiao, we basically have what would be the best kind of artifacts that you could possibly have, right? You need 2 pieces of Resin and 2 pieces of Gladiator. Then I would recommend you to get the goblet with whatever type of goblet it is, as long as it has an emo damage. Remember, it's very difficult to get an emo damage in exactly what you want. And also, aside from getting it in the kind of piece set that you want it, you also need to get good substats for it. So it's just insane RNG, dude. So in order for you to save yourself some trouble, I recommend you to really ignore goblets and farm your Resin. In case you're lucky, fine, but otherwise just get whatever goblet that you have with an emo damage. It's going to save you a hell of a lot of trouble. Now, when it comes down to the main stats and the substats of your artifacts, what you're going to require is going to be fairly simple, fairly straightforward. You need a lot of critical rate and a lot of critical damage. If you can get something like this, that would be amazing. Particularly if you can get critical damage. Critical damage is really, really key, particularly because Xiao has a lot of critical rate naturally, right? So we already have a lot of critical rate, so we don't really need it that much. What we need is more critical damage so that our plunges do even more damage, right? So something like this would be great, but you can make it better if you can go past 20% critical damage. It is the exact same case for the plume. You need critical damage. As you can see, I have a lot of critical right there, right here. But in this case, since I'm using D-Look and I have a free-to-play weapon, the critical rate is actually helping me a lot. Of course, this artifact could be better, right? When it comes down to the Sands of Eon, you need attack percentage, 100% when it comes down to the main stat. And when it comes down to your substats, remember, you need to go for critical rate and critical damage specifically. So for example, you could have a Sands of Eon that has like death percentage and HP, but you have like critical damage that's like 20% plus, then that is an amazing kind of artifact. Don't really waste that much on your artifacts. I'm going to recommend you that as free to play. Why? Because 100% they're going to make new sets that are going to probably be way better. And if you waste your resin for like a week just to get a better Sand of Eon, for example, that has a little bit more critical damage, or one that has better substats like critical damage, critical rate, attack percentage, and elemental mastery, like they're possible, but not so much feasible for free to play. Remember that you don't really have that much resin, and the people that you see on YouTube videos, they're mostly whales. They have been playing this game really, really hard. You can tell because they are like AR 56, 57, right? And that's really, really difficult. So they have been investing on a lot of primogems, on more resin, and you cannot really compete with that, but it doesn't really matter. You don't really need that much. As long as you have like a really decent substat, that's all you need. Now, when it comes down, of course, to your goblet, as I said, an emo damage bonus in your main stat. And of course, if you can get something that is somewhat decent, something like this, is going to be amazing, right? As I said, critical damage, one single substat that's like high enough, that's going to be amazing. Oh, by the way, let me tell you, one 4-star that has pyro damage is way better than a 5-star that has attack percentage, dude. Believe me, you get a lot more out of this. And as I said, depending on your weapon, you're going to need either critical rate or critical damage on this one. I would recommend you to go for deathmatch and critical damage, but if you're going to go for Black Cliff, then you're going to need to go for critical rate. And if you're lucky enough to get a decent substat, like for example in this case that I got attack percentage plus 16%, I think you would be great. But remember, don't stress yourself all that much, because of course you're going to be losing some damage if you don't have like perfect substats, but it's not a big a deal. Like, just aim for a substat that is somewhat decent, and that will be enough. Unless you're like super main Xiao, then go for like all your stamina and all your resin spent into better artifacts, right? And again, as I'm repeating, if you get that much, it's going to be the best possible weapon that you can possibly get, because you will no longer need to worry about critical rate at all in your substats, and you can still get a lot of critical damage from for example, your hat, and then as a substat on your artifacts, right? And getting one single critical damage is not so rare, right? I think critical damage kind of tends to appear on your substats, so I think it's one way to do things without wasting insane amounts of resin, right? Which is another factor that a lot of people don't really tell you about. So now, by doing all of the things that I told you to do, you're going to have a Xiao that does very similar damage to this one, and you're really not going to have any trouble. You're going to be like, yeah, my Xiao is really strong, dude. So you're going to be doing a lot of damage with a particular build without really spending all that much resin, and you're not going to be missing all that much damage in comparison with like the YouTubers that are like doing like 50k plunges or 40k plunges. You're probably are barely going to reach 30, but it's still going to be pretty strong. And now you have one hell of a Xiao, dude. I can tell you that much. Being free to play still allows you to do pretty decent damage. It really is just a matter of allocating your particular effort on certain things. That is the best Xiao build that you can possibly get in this game as free to play. And with that, like, subscribe, and Bruce with G. See you in the next one, guys.